And welcome back into another episode of Tribal Council Chat. As always, my name is Bruce Heller,
My name's Brett Parnell.
and let's get started. And this is a fun episode, guys. This is our first ever episode review here on Tribal Council Chat. We
It's a
started the
new
show,
season.
first new season. We started this show after the 44 finale, but this is our first ever full episode review where we're not doing anything else but talking about a new episode. And this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited to finally be talking about Live Survivor with you, Bruce, as it happens, as opposed to going back into the last 44 seasons and really covering some brand new thoughts, brand new opinions. It's going to
Oh,
be
yeah,
great
for sure.
for the next 3-4 months.
Definitely, for sure. This is going to be a lot of fun. So let's dive in.
So, when we get into the season, we have the cast come out onto the barge as we've seen many times before.
Yep.
David versus Goliath especially sticks out here. And we get to the first challenge. What was your overall thoughts of basically starting with the first challenge, but then the kind of change to how tribes earn their starting gear in this season compared to the past seasons we see in the new era?
So I will get to the challenge, but I had a couple notes even before that. I love Brandon's just emotion and energy about even just being at the marooning. That was really cool to see. And
Absolutely.
I feel like we're going to be talking about her a decent amount this episode. But I was taking notes throughout the episode. What I have written down on my second note is Emily publicly pushing back against Bruce and what he's saying at the marooning could possibly be a bad look and make you look argumentative. She's coming out aggressive right out of the gate. And it's a strategy. I don't know if I like it or not, but I wouldn't do it, but it's a strategy. Maybe it'll work for her.
Yeah, I mean, I found it interesting because at one point she's clearly already Emily's showing that she's going to be the most divisive character this season.
Uh-huh.
Is it a good strategy? Who knows? Do I agree with her that Bruce has any real advantage, seeing that he literally played in one challenge and spent half an afternoon on a beach? No. At the same time, does she, at least so far, Emily's making great television?
Yeah. And we'll get to Bruce also, because we had the weird moment of him telling his tribe he didn't want to be dad. And then we followed that right up with a montage of him saying, well, I was here for this part at least, and telling them how to do things. But one thing I did like from this challenge is the tribe that wins actually gets their camp supplies. So far with other new era seasons, we've seen none of them get camp supplies, and each tribe has to do sweat versus savvy to see if they can earn it. Whereas this time, the winning tribe gets it right after the challenge. And I thought that was a really cool switch up.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It was gives it that little added bit of incentive for tribes to want to both compete here and really be that get that first win out of the gate under your belt already before
Yeah,
even seeing your camp.
and great challenge for Reba. They were clicking on all cylinders. They won the challenge. Good for them.
Oh, they were. Um, so far they look not even just in this challenge, but in the first episode, I think it's pretty safe to say that Reba looks like the best all around tribe, but we'll see if that lasts as we go through the next few episodes.
Yeah. And the next note I have is Sweat versus Savvy is different this time. Sending 3 people or 2 people per tribe, I think, to do it versus the whole tribe doing it together and sending them to a separate island to do it instead of doing it at your own camp. This is a whole new Sweat versus Savvy we're seeing here.
Yeah, I found that really interesting because with it being on an island on its own island, it gave the players who are separated from their own tribe which was previously a complete disadvantage when we saw, like, say, Mike talking about it, doing the sweat in 42 and how he didn't want to do it because he would be isolated. Now you almost have you're away from your own tribe, but the players who do it are almost finding a way to connect between tribes on day one.
Yeah, and like I said, not only is it two people instead of the whole tribe and it's on its own island, it's also a competition between the two tribes.
Yeah.
And instead of choosing Sweat or Savvy, you have to attempt both of them. This is a
Exactly.
whole new version of this, and I'm kind of here for it. And
Oh,
doing one of them alone always looked hard enough and always took right till the end of the time frame they were given. Once I realized I had to do both of them, I figured neither one of them would be able to complete it, and neither one of them did. So
yeah, that was interesting for me. Is I agree with you. I was totally here for it. I like this idea of a competition between the two tribes. However, I almost feel it was also maybe mismanaged in the fact that none of them completed it. Whereas it would have maybe been more interesting to see them compete for the camp gear in the first challenge, and the two losers immediately go to another challenge, and one of them gets it again.
yeah, that would have been fun. And
That would
inter-
have made more sense.
it's an interesting thought because like neither of us have played, but like I feel like you first get to your and I heard Devin saying this while I was driving yesterday because I was listening to On Fire, which is CBS's official podcast for the show. And like when you first get to your beach, he goes, you have this moment of excitement and looking forward to, oh my gosh, I'm going to be living here. This is my new home for a while. And then night starts to fall, and you think about shelter, and oh my gosh, I'm going to be living here. What do we do? And two of these three tribes are having that moment. They don't even have a machete to chop stuff, or don't even have a way to really build a shelter necessarily.
No,
And so that was interesting. I mean, obviously, the Sweat versus Savvy not winning camp supplies kind of added to that problem, but that's part of the game, I guess.
oh yeah, definitely. I'm sure at some point they'll overcome that soon, but it'll be interesting to see going into this week's episode.
Yeah. And then the next note I have is from Red Tribe, I believe, Julie lying about her job, saying she's an art teacher. And we got this with two or three people that are
Yeah,
attorneys but didn't want to say they were attorneys.
yeah, it seemed odd to me, both in the fact that they all need to do this, but that it's playing out on a season that is very lawyer heavy
Yeah.
as far as casting goes. It's like, where did they find all these people that are all in the legal business?
And like we've seen people lie about their jobs before, like Gary on Guatemala, but I've never seen it more than once in a season. And we have two or three of them doing it now, and they all have the same job in real life. They're all lawyers, which I kind of get it. There's not a great reputation around lawyers, and they are good at arguing. That could make you a threat. So I get it. It's just funny that there's three of them doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. We to see all of them doing it is odd. Like, everyone's coming in with the same strategy, but we'll see how it works. I'm sure at some point it's gonna blow up in somebody's face, like it did to Tony back in Kaguya.
Yeah. The next note that I have is and I mentioned this earlier. Bruce saying he doesn't want to be dad and doesn't be a leader, and then the very next thing we see is a montage of him telling people how to do things, and that's an interesting choice there.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. I made a comment to my family during the episode, um, when it was on, that I'm like, Bruce might not be being dad here, but at the end of the day, he still does come from a background in the armed forces. And it's probably just a little too different for him to be in that environment where there's no structure.
Yeah, for sure. And so, what have you thought from what we've seen from each tribe at their camp so far? Because at this point, I think we've gone to each tribe at least for a little bit.
Yeah, we have. I definitely think Reba looks to be in the best spot, like I mentioned.
For sure.
Um, they look like a very solid, well-rounded tribe that has people who are going to be good everywhere. Bello, I think, could. It's interesting. I think they might be strategically in the best spot, especially seeing like the Three Girls Alliance coming together already with Kendra, Katura, and Kelly.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
I I think that's going to be very dangerous if they end up sticking together. We'll see how that goes. But I mean, I think the last time we saw a day one women's alliance goes back 12 seasons to Korong. And that almost worked out until they were divided. And I mean, Katura, Kelly, and Kendra don't have to deal with tribe swaps. At least we think.
I hope they do. I miss tribe swaps. Hopefully, they bring that back.
I absolutely agree, but we haven't seen one in so long that
We sort of got one last season in a weird convoluted version of it. But speaking of Kendra, one of the notes I had written down here, and I had laughing emojis on this, is Kendra being obsessed with astrology. That the production definitely made a point to get that across to us.
oh, definitely. Which the fact that they did has me kind of wondering what could happen with that.
Yeah,
Are they potentially foreshadowing Kendra as an early boot who might drive everybody crazy? Or is it important that we get this background for her as a very free spirited person because maybe she becomes a much bigger character in the season and they really want us to know something about her early on?
I don't know. I thought part of me while I was watching thought that's why we saw Hannah say we can do hard things 10,000 times during the episode. But I was obviously wrong about that one. So I have no idea what to make of this astrology thing. It just made me laugh that we saw her mention it like 3 times in a 2-minute clip at least.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I was talking, I was getting flashbacks more to Shane Powers.
Yeah, but I love I like Hannah's thought behind the we can do hard things.
Yeah.
They put her saying it so many times in the episode. At least to me, it felt like they did. Maybe it wasn't as many as I'm remembering. It's been a few days, but
And then following up after those two tribes with Lulu,
oh
I
gosh,
mean, this is the hot mess tribe of the season.
this is our
I
new.
already
This is the new disaster tribe of the season. They're Luzon.
absolutely, I mean, look, Brandon and his issues with the ladder, Emily and is going to be complete chaos. My winner pick, Caleb, is on this tribe, so I already feel bad for it.
He looks good though.
Yeah, he does.
So let me think.
I almost wonder though with this group, like they lost Hannah, who wasn't really in it. Maybe if they just like who knows, but maybe they could vote out somebody else this week and then really be like we saw in 42. That kind of once the tribe shrinks, um was it Taka, Lindsay and Jonathan's tribe, and Omar and
There,
Marianne?
Haku,
Yeah,
TKU. Yeah,
exactly.
Orange tribe.
Like they could you like who knows? Maybe if this mesh tribe becomes like a 4 or a 3 at some point, they could still have a lot to play in this game.
I mean, look just a season ago, our pre-merge disaster tribe was Tika. Got down to like 3 people before there was ever a merge, and then the 3 of them were 3 of the final 4. So,
Exactly.
but then again, look at Luzon, who just was terrible pre-merge and then didn't have numbers. And I mean,
Yeah, but
Cash made it to 3rd, but I mean, that was not, they weren't the same
one guy who. That's a tribe that had one guy though who didn't want to strategize, and another one who dumped rice all over the camps.
Yeah.
At
And then
least,
just whatever that tribal was where Garrett goes home, whatever
yeah,
he did. I don't even know how to describe Garrett at that second tribal council. But
I don't get it.
the
But at least in this case, Lulu does not look anywhere close to being on Luzon's levels,
yet,
Matt Singh's levels,
yet,
or
Oolong.
Oolong. Yeah, you knew who I was thinking about.
Yep. So the notes I have from the Lulu section, I think I have 4 of them. Where was I? I have Emily at camp because I mentioned Emily being kind of aggressive and running her mouth a little bit at the marooning. We see her doing this again at camp. And this time she's just openly trying to put a target on the 2 people that volunteered for Sweat versus Savvy, and how dare they do that? They're definitely a power pair because of that, Caleb and Sabaya. And I wrote down at that time, she's gonna get herself in trouble for being too aggressive and too paranoid. But she's just coming
Yeah,
right through the gate in camp.
it's interesting because yeah, she definitely will at some point. But I liked Emily's intro to a point where she had that statement that said, if you're not going to win the game, who cares where you finish? Unlike pretty much everybody else. And it's like she could have easily been voted off first and managed to survive it
Yeah,
by
I
the
don't
unlikeliest of circumstances.
I don't remember if it was just texting with you or someone online, but somewhere I saw somebody compare Emily to Cass. I,
Emily compared herself to Cass pre-game.
well, no, like since the premiere though, I've seen someone say that, but the slight, I feel like Cass is a bit smarter about when to be the negative person or when to run your mouth, for lack of a better term. Whereas Emily's just pedal to the floor all the time. I don't care how I'm coming off. Cass was a little more strategic about how she was doing it. I feel like is the
Yeah.
slight difference there. Fun fact, and I read this today. Have you seen the reason Emily applied for Survivor in the first place?
No, please share.
She saw that she watched Gabler win, and it made her so upset and mad that she went and applied. I will send it to you once we finish recording. That is why
Oh,
she
that's
applied,
funny.
because Gabler winning made her that mad. Which, props to her, I guess. But I don't think she'll be around very long.
So, I mean, I guess we found the biggest Cassidy fan.
Yeah. Or just the least Gabler fan. One of those two, or both. And then I did have it. What's interesting is both tribes are in trouble. And neither one of them realizes it's both tribes that don't have the camp supplies.
Yeah.
And the people that didn't get the camp supplies might be in trouble coming back because they volunteered for something and didn't get it. And so it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. And we touched on that a little bit, but
Yeah. That it will be interesting, especially if one of them loses, which is more than likely, and has to vote.
yeah. And then just the last 2 notes I had from this little section of Lulu camp life is back to Emily, even though we just talked about her. I just wrote Emily is so negative, and Emily won't last long. So we'll see how those work for me. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
I think she'll get on my
Um,
nerves.
I from what we see so far, I want to agree, but they're also building her up so much that I never know.
Yeah, for sure. So the next note I have is the girl on Bello that was hiding that she's a lawyer, but we already covered that. So on to Reba at camp. I thought it was funny seeing Sifu, who shout out to him because he's from St. Louis, lives in O'Fallon, I
Nice.
believe. Running, just leaving camp and running through the woods for some reason, which made me laugh. And then we see Dee comparing him to Tony, and then immediately catching him trying to spy on them, pretending he's spying on them. I really don't know what he was doing, but he gets caught, whatever he's doing. And so, yeah, I'm seeing the Tony a little bit, but it's Game Changers Tony.
Yeah. Which Game Changers Tony, as you and I have discussed many times before, is the worst form of Tony.
It's still great TV, though. Like, who
It
else is
is.
going to say, oh, I'm going to go look for an idol, and just everyone rolls their eyes. Okay, someone go follow him. I mean, that might be my favorite version of Tony, humor-wise.
Yes, I agree.
But we'll see. Sifu seems like he's going to be fun. He's
Yes, he does.
so much fun. Love his smile. He's great. So, immunity challenge. What do you have for us on that one?
I'm just checking my notes. I mean, we have a blowout that we kind of already hinted at, even though we didn't talk about the immunity challenge. We see Lebo win. Bello this time also gets immunity. So
Yeah.
nothing really out of the ordinary from what the episode's been showing us so far. At the same time, I think it'll be interesting because both of these tribes seem to be that one seem to be quite well organized, and it'll be interesting to see if one of them kind of takes the lead moving forward and becomes more dominant and sends some of the other members home, or if they remain relatively equal throughout the pre-merge portion of the game. That's what I'll
Yeah.
be watching for.
And Lulu, our disaster tribe, comes in last in this, and Brandon specifically has a rough challenge as he fell off a ladder. And was that the panic attack challenge, or was the panic attack in the first challenge,
Um,
or both?
I think it was in the first one because that was going up the budge.
Oh yeah, because he left with medical coming back from the first challenge, so he's already behind because he's not at camp for a little while. And then he just falls off a ladder in this challenge and just lays there for a little bit. So rough start for Brandon in challenges.
Yeah, really rough start for Brandon. It would have been interesting if we voted. I don't think Hannah was really in that much danger. It would
No,
have been interesting to see which votes went for Brandon and which votes went for Emily.
there was no chance Hannah was going home without the quit. And so let's get into this because we see this Lulu finishes last, so they're going to tribal. And the scrambling is just crazy because you have a target on Brandon, obviously, because he just got you sent to tribal by falling off of a ladder. We have Emily, who at this point is annoying everyone and getting on everyone's nerves. Like, I figure she would early in the episode. I said this is going to happen. But we also have Emily going hard, maybe a little too hard. We'll see after Caleb and Sabaya, because just the two of them volunteered for something. So Emily's pairing them together and trying to put a target on them. So all sorts of craziness going back and forth. We've seen everyone talking to everyone at this point. We see Hannah say we can do hard things a couple more times. And then we get to tribal and we don't even get to see what happens. Or which
Let's
one is it?
rewind a bit. Because even before we get to tribal, we do have a couple off the hand remarks though that are kind of hints here, where we see Hannah talking about things like missing food and being addicted to smoking throughout the basically most of the camp life segment right before we go into tribal, and you start wondering, wait, is she gonna actually do it?
Yeah, and it's interesting.
Going in, it was like I almost thought I was watching, say, like Zane Knight all over again, where she was going to change her mind at the end and just was maybe going crazy a bit.
Yeah,
But then, no, you're right. We don't see what actually would have played out.
because Hannah aside, and I I don't know. I feel like the first couple days are the culture shock, and that's the hardest part. If she had been able to just stick that out, maybe things are different. Maybe she settles in and gets used to it. We'll never know now. But
Yeah.
Hannah aside, there was like three different plans people were trying to organize going into this tribal. There was a target on Caleb, a target on Emily, and Emily was trying to put a target on Caleb and Sabaya that we don't know if that was going to stick or not. I don't think it was. But we end up not having a vote because Hannah ends up quitting
Yeah.
at tribal council. Which one thing that's interesting to me is Probst, because I mean he ends up snuffing her torch like it was a vote out. And her she didn't have to lay her torch down like someone like Austin did when he quit at tribal council.
Yeah. I did notice that.
And I was listening to On Fire yesterday. I think it was Rick Devens kind of asked Probst why he wasn't as hard as he normally was, and why he kept the conversation going. And I just kind of thought what he said was interesting because what Probst was saying, and you've heard him say this a lot, is that the players are who dictate or are in charge of tribal council at the end of the day. And if
Yeah.
she's saying she wants to go, but the rest of them want to have a vote and want to send someone else home, he was going to let them do that. So him keeping the conversation going and not just drilling into her for wanting to quit was kind of trying to gauge where everyone else was at, if they were okay with this, and so on.
Found that, I found that interaction interesting because I was like, we didn't have a vote. And I mean, if they were all going to do it, that's fine. I don't really see a problem with that for television. At the same time, it's like, I would have thought that maybe instead of it being some unanimous consensus that we could should have maybe gone back to like Alicia and Korong, where even if one person disagreed, we still played out tribal as it was originally intended to.
Fair play sort
I
of
know
quit at tribal, and we still had a vote for that one. So why are we A,
exactly.
not having a vote, and why does she get her torch snuffed instead of just having to drop it like
Yeah.
Austin did?
I was there, and I think this is an interesting point. I'd be interesting to hear what you would think. But if I was in that tribal, I would have been in, as a player saying, no, I want to vote. Not that I wouldn't have voted out Hannah if she wanted to go, but I would have been curious just to see those other five votes that aren't my own.
See, I see that, and I might have, but I also wouldn't want to be if everyone else is nodding, we don't have to vote. I'm not going to be the one person that stands up and says we need to vote because that's putting eyes on me and possibly
That's
making
true.
me a target. And there's early in the game, you're just trying to survive each round. It really doesn't matter. You haven't formed bonds super closely with anyone yet. And so at that point I would just be trying to keep eyes off of me. So whatever the majority went with, I'm just rolling with.
Makes sense. I was just thinking more along the lines of like, I think it's Rob who said information's the most important thing in the game.
Yeah. So it's annoying to see someone Hannah quit. I mean, she was somebody you and I were both excited to see based on the pregame stuff. It's kind of a reflection on this casting process that Probst and the show brag about so much. But I will say, Probst owned that though. He said when I was listening to his podcast, he said right after that tribal ended, the first call he made was to someone in casting. I forget the name, and he said, "What did we miss here? Because we missed something."
So that's really interesting to note because when Jeff does own that and does make that call instantly, it's like you do then start to think that maybe it might be something that they look at moving forward into other seasons when they go and do the casting process this fall for, okay, how do we make sure that this never happens again?
Yeah, because I mean,
I'm sure Jeff knew the second it happened what the reaction on socials was going to be like, almost to the way it exactly was on Wednesday night and Thursday morning.
and that's part of I think why he wasn't as hard on her as he's been on past quitters, like in Austin, like Colton Blood versus Colton, but like other quitters. And what he said was like back when Austin quit, he felt like he needed to be the voice for the audience. Social media didn't
Yeah,
exist back then. He knew the audience would be furious with Austin, so that's what he portrayed. He doesn't have to be that anymore. Social
exactly.
media exists.
Sure.
He doesn't have to speak on our behalf. So I think that's kind of why he didn't bring the hammer down like we've seen him. I still kind of wish he wouldn't have done the torch snuff. But I mean, I'm kind of okay with him not bringing the hammer down on this one. The fans are doing that.
Yeah.
Former players, even some of them on Twitter, are doing that too.
Yeah. And I disagree with them.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Anyway, should we get into Ally Blindside First Boot before we head out?
Yeah, so I'll go first this time because I think I've made you go first the past couple times because I was still trying to think of a name or something. And so, in honor of Hannah quitting, I have 3 people that have quit before.
You have the same theme as me.
I'd have Julie McGee from San Juan del Sur, Austin Taylor, I believe, from Pearl Islands, and Lindsay from Cagayan.
Oh, good. You have the same theme as me, but we have different names.
That's funny. That's really funny, actually.
Oh, that is interesting. I am going to say, ally with Lindsay. I think she was kind of a wild card in that vote, and I don't blame her as much as I blame some other people who quit. Because if I was on a tribe that wanted to throw that challenge, I would have been furious too.
Yeah.
I'm going to blindside Austin. I think his physical strength could be very effective early on in the game if he wants to stay. And that leaves me to blindside Julie. To a first boot Julie. Nothing against her game. I didn't see much of it. I mean, if you quit just because your husband got voted out, then you're probably not going to be that useful for a tribe in an individual season.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. Also, 2 notes. If the challenge ever does another rival season, get Austin on there with that pelican that was on their beach for a little bit. That was great. And
Yes.
as far as Lindsay, if I mean, the way things were with her and Trish, like, I'd be at my wits' end also. So I get it. I don't love it. I don't like that she quit, but I mean, Trish just kept picking on her and picking on her at that point. So something was bound to blow up.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so the names that I am going to give you, um, Kathy Sleckman from Micronesia,
Oh, I forgot about her.
Nayanka Nayanka Mixon
No.
from um Nicaragua, and Colton Cumby from Blood
Oh,
versus
stop it.
Water.
No. I was as soon as you said Naonka, my thought was immediately was first boot her. But then you mentioned Colton, and I just can't deal with. I'm definitely aligning with Kathy, which I'm not sure that's going to get me super far either. But
I
I
mean,
can't
other
deal with
than the other
the other.
two.
I can't deal with. I don't even know how to pick between those two. Honestly, they're so similar. Gosh, that's not very nice of you. I guess first boot Nayanka and just cut Colton at the merge. Just I feel like seeing him as a juror would be entertaining at least.
That's a good point.
That's the only reason though. I really don't like keeping him around that long.
Oh,
That's an amazing move on your. Not very nice, but that's hilarious. Oh, this was fun.
yeah, that was fun. Anyway, so back for the episode. This will drop on Tuesday, episode on Wednesday, and then we'll be back here again for episode 2.
See you guys next week. Head back to camp. Bye guys. Subscribe on YouTube.